If you're hearing this in your Rolls Royce, then Donald Trump's tax plan is for you.
You're rich as hell. We're going to give you a tax cut?
But for everyone else, there's Kamala Harris's plan.
Under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut.
Because that guy in the Ferrari doesn't need another break. But Kamala Harris knows you sure could use one. Paid for by FFPAC, ffpac.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Want to listen ad-free and get to know Natalie and me a little bit better? Make sure to subscribe on Patreon, Apple Podcasts, or search The Murder Diaries ad-free on Spotify. For $2.99 a month, subscribers get to listen to our special journal entry episodes, which is basically like a window view of one of Natalie and I's phone calls twice a month. And you get to listen to every single episode ad-free. We thank all of our listeners who are already subscribed so much. And if you've been considering it, don't wait any longer. Head over to patreon.com, Apple Podcasts, hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, or search The Murder Diaries ad-free on Spotify.
Welcome to The Murder Diaries. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige.
Picture this. A kitchen alive with the buzz of a first birthday party. Bright streamers hang from the ceiling, and amidst the festive chaos, a woman with dark curly hair stands slightly off to the side. She wears a vibrant yellow t-shirt, impossible to ignore. This is Brenda Lambert, the proud mother celebrating her son's special day. And while a helpful party guest clears dishes in the background, it's Brenda's face that draws you in. Her expression is haunting. Maybe it's sadness or worry, but it's certainly not the radiant smile you'd expect from a mother surrounded by laughter and joy. And what makes this moment even more chilling is the fact that this photo I've been describing to you would be one of the last photos taken of Brenda before she vanished without a trace, leaving behind a family shattered and searching for answers in the darkness. It was a celebration turned into a mystery that would haunt them for decades. This is her story.
Used to think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
Brenda Lambert was born Brenda Gail Christian on December 26, 1969 in Williamson, West Virginia. And to say she came from a big family is an understatement. She was the fifth child born to her parents, with two more siblings joining the mix in the years that followed. Brenda's father had a previous marriage and 6 children from that relationship, giving Brenda a remarkable total of 12 siblings. For 8 years, she held the title of the baby of the family until her next youngest sibling, Christy, arrived. And we were so fortunate to speak with Christy for this episode. We're incredibly grateful for her time and insights into her sister's life. Christy told us that the first 5 siblings were born one after the other with only 18 months between every baby. After Brenda was born, it was 8 years before Christy came along, and another 5 before the youngest brother joined the family. Christy said that due to the age gap, Brenda became more of a mother figure to her than a sister.
From what I can remember, when I was smaller, I can just remember hitting her with stuff, and I never understood why until my older siblings told me, she's a little bit jealous where I took her baby spot. So there was a little bit of sibling rivalry going on there for a little while with 2 little kids. But she was never like mean to me or anything, just kind of, little snotty things. But I remember when I was 9 years old, I remember her always being really protective of me at school. On the bus, she'd sit in the back and she would just eyeball anybody to do anything to me.
When Brenda was a child, she was fun-loving and outgoing. She was described as a tomboy and was never happier than when she was outside getting muddy and climbing trees. But Brenda contrasted her tomboy nature with a love of doing hair and makeup, and she was known to make over her friends. And as she grew up, she kept a hold of that fun-loving spirit and would initiate water fights and games of hide and seek. Brenda was a prankster through and through, and with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, she would play good-natured pranks on her siblings, like slathering their doorknobs with Vaseline so they couldn't get into their rooms. According to Christy, there was never a dull moment in the Christian household.
She was probably, a lot of people say this, but she was probably the life of our family. She was the fun one. She was always, even right before she disappeared, she still liked having water fights. She liked to play hide and seek. There was a lot of pranks going on with Brenda. A lot of little odd things that Brenda would do. Like if we got stopped at a certain red light here in Bluewell, we would have to get out of the car and run around at once and hurry and get back in our seats. So she was really spontaneous and fun. She was a prankster. And, you know, there's times like I just got, you know, you kind of get tired just, you know, having to look over your shoulders, but she never did nothing bad, just funny, you know, but you just get tired sometimes. Like, I just know she's up to something. So, you know, she was really sweet like that. But you know, if she just did something, sometimes if she did something nice to you out of the blue, like maybe bought you a plate full of cookies, check the bottom for like hot sauce. She did not want to grow up and grow old. She was mature when it came to, you know, the important stuff. But Brenda was just a big kid, pretty much, for the most part.
Christy told us about a prank Brenda pulled just before she disappeared. Now, I need to mention that Brenda was a huge dog lover, which is what made this prank very believable. We'll let Christy explain the details.
We had a sleepover not long before she vanished, and she came in and told us there was a dog hurt in the road, and you know, she couldn't move him on her own. And she was just so serious, you know, and she got me and my other sister up from our dead sleep. And it was 3:00 in the morning. Okay. And she was just, you know, there's a dog hurt in the road. He must have got hit. Y'all got to come out here and help me move him into the yard. And we went out there to the end of her driveway, and there was no dog. There was Brenda hiding in the bushes with a water hose. And then see that water fight, everybody in the household just got up. All the adults did. The kids stayed asleep, you know. But yeah, we had a water fight until daylight. So that was life around Brenda. You just never knew.
Christy remembers her sister as more than the life of the party. She remembers her sister as kind, generous, and with a big heart.
She had this huge heart. And I remember once our aunt didn't have a Christmas tree. And she told her not to worry about going out and buying one. So she got me to go with almost knee-deep snow up to a flat here, you know, close, where she could cut her one down. And that's exactly what we did. We made it up to the top in this really cold weather so she could chop down a Christmas tree for her aunt. And she took it to her.
As a young adult, Brenda found school to be a bore. She was intelligent and could complete the work, but she just didn't like it. According to Evaporate the Missing, her high school principal called her parents and strongly suggested that they let 15-year-old Brenda leave school and perhaps find a path that was better suited for her. Her parents eventually agreed, and Brenda left school. Then a year later, at the age of 16, Brenda met 20-year-old Raymond Lambert, the man she would later marry. Raymond was a co-worker of Brenda's brother Tim, and the pair met when Raymond stopped in at the house when he was giving Tim a ride to work. Raymond and Tim carpooled often, so Raymond and Brenda would run into each other on the regular. They started dating, and Brenda found out she was pregnant not long after. From there, everything happened quickly. The pair married in 1986, and by 1991, they were the proud parents of 2 children, a daughter and a son. They eventually settled into a home in Bluewell, West Virginia. According to Christy, Brenda and Raymond's marriage appeared rock solid. They were affectionate with each other, and Christy would see them slow dance in the kitchen. Christy even said that she wanted a relationship like theirs when she was older.
And yeah, there was no time lost there in getting to that adult life. And they were both young. He was 20 and she was 16, which is legal. You know? But yeah, I mean, it was just like you said, it happened fast. Everything did.
Christy was honored when she found out that her niece Brenda's daughter was named after her.
When I was 9 and her daughter was born, and she came and told me that she's like, we named her after you. And I was like, and I believe that's the first time I actually realized that Brenda actually really loved me.
Motherhood suited Brenda. She loved kids, both her own and the children of her siblings. And she eventually became a stay-at-home mom and spent her time devoted to making an amazing childhood for her kids.
The one thing I really want people to know about Brenda, because it seems like it's been just what defined her for so many years, is that Brenda was a very deeply devoted mother. She was a young mother, but she jumped right into it. And I just seen her with her kids so much. And the way she would just, you could just tell by the way she would just look at them, how much she loved these kids. And always dressing her little girl up like a doll, And then when her son come along, she was just absolutely floored. She was just so happy to have her little girl and her little boy.
Being a young mom forced Brenda to grow up quickly, but she rose to her new role and responsibilities with grace. She became a mama bear, fiercely protective of her kids, while still keeping her playful nature that her friends and family knew.
I think it made her grow up a little bit more, and she loved kids anyway. I mean, Brenda was just a kid person. If you went anywhere, like say there was a family reunion and there's adults over this way, she's going to be over here with the kids because she's going to play. She's not going to waste her time with the adults. The kids was where it's at, Yeah, it made her more mature. She's always been feisty. Like Brenda was really sweet, but she did not deal with rudeness or people coming against her kids, her husband, her family, her friends. She's not just going to start slinging fish. She's just like, hey, that's not going to happen here. But I think it made her a little bit more settled, and it made her happier to have her kids. Just made her whole world. That was her whole purpose in life, was those two little kids. But I think it changed her for the better because of the happiness that she felt with when her daughter came along. She's just loves her, I loved her.
Cracks started to appear in the Lambert relationship in 1992. Christy told Missing People in America that Raymond had cheated on Brenda during the relationship, but from their view, as a young teen without the life experience to fully understand, she didn't think it was that big of a deal, and everything else she saw pointed to a happy marriage.
But in 1992, things changed. Brenda and Christy's Aunt Bonnie moved to town, and with her was their cousin Tammy. Tammy and Brenda started hanging out, and everyone thought it was nice that the cousins were becoming close. However, Tammy may have had an ulterior motive behind wanting to spend time with Brenda. Raymond. According to Christy, Tammy claimed she didn't know Brenda and Raymond were married, which is really hard to believe, because how could she not know who her cousin, whom she was spending a lot of time with, was married to? Christy was only 14 years old at the time, so she was just a kid. And as a result, she didn't know everything that was happening at the time. However, she was privy to more information as she got older. She said that Tammy and Raymond started having an affair, and after that began, so did the violence against Brenda. Brenda started arriving to her sister's houses with black eyes and red rings around her neck from Raymond choking and hitting her. And her sisters were at a loss. They didn't know what to say or do to help her aside from encouraging her to leave Raymond. But Brenda insisted that she wanted to dot her I's and cross her T's and ensure the separation went through the courts.
I didn't really know because my mom had the rule. I was just 14, so kids didn't need to be in adult business, which I kind of like that. I'm pretty sure that if she knew what was going to happen, she would have wanted me to pay more closer attention. I didn't notice any violence from him at all. Of course, it's like I said, he was a great father figure to me. He treated me like one of his own. And it literally shocked me. It was probably after Brenda disappeared. I'd heard things here and there about, domestic violence, him hitting her and stuff like this. But I was just picking up on little pieces. And at 14 years old, I didn't know, really what's going on here. Is this really happening? Is this just what they're hearing happen? I didn't know. I guess part of me just didn't want to hear it either, like I said, it was like a mom and dad to me. And it really scared me to thought of them two divorcing and breaking up because that was my second home.
By July 1992, Raymond had moved out and moved back to his parents' house, located on a large property in the mountains. Brenda soon took out a restraining order against Raymond and she filed charges. According to the protective order, a misdemeanor battery occurred on or prior to July 7, 1992. And although an arrest warrant was issued, Raymond was never taken into custody. And because he was allowed to stay free, Raymond was able to locate Brenda. Brenda told her mother that when Raymond found her, he assaulted her and made her call the police to have the restraining order dropped while he held a weapon to her head.
He never was arrested. And 2 days after it was issued, he found her and beat her and, put a gun to her head and made her drop it.
Brenda was going to seek full custody of the children, and she had an appointment to see a lawyer on July 30th. Her plan was to get the ball rolling before Raymond so that she would get custody of the kids until the hearing. But according to Oxygen True Crime, Raymond told Brenda that he'd see her dead before she took his kids.
She had an appointment with a lawyer on July 30th to go seek custody of her kids because he was holding them against her or wouldn't let her see them up at his family's house. It was supposed to have been a secret because whoever goes and files custody first here will get full custody of the kids until a court hearing. And I don't think that was kept a secret. Somebody went behind her back and told something, but...
During this time, Raymond started keeping the children, now ages 5 and 1, from Brenda. According to our interview with Christy, Brenda claimed to know things about the Lambert family, and she threatened to go to the police and tell them what she knew.
3 days before she disappeared, she told him that if he didn't bring her kids to her, that she was going to tell things on him and his family that would have them thrown in prison for the rest of their lives.
So Brenda put a brave face on for the sake of her kids. And on July 26, 1992, she held a first birthday celebration for her son at her home on Windmill Hill Road, and she allowed Raymond and his mother to attend the party. Also in attendance was Brenda's mom and 3 of her sisters, including Christy. Now, according to the BrendaLambert.org website run by the family, Brenda seemed to be nervous from the time the party started, and things didn't get better when Tammy showed up uninvited. As you'd expect, this unannounced extra guest increased the tension at an already tense time. And to keep the children from hearing, Brenda, Raymond, and the others went out to the porch to argue about why Tammy was there and who invited her in the first place. Raymond denied inviting her, and no one else spoke up to confess. Brenda was understandably in a bad mood for the rest of the party, as she tried her best to make it a memorable event for the sake of her son. This was the night that Christy, who had been shielded from the nitty-gritty details due to her age, found out that Raymond and Tammy were having an affair.
I learned about his affair with our first cousin the night Brenda disappeared. I was talking to her on the porch, and there's a picture from the birthday party when we're talking too, and she told me that Raymond is screwing Tammy. I didn't even know how to react to that.
Despite Brenda's efforts to throw a nice party where she hoped everyone could be civil for the sake of the children, the mood was low and things started to wind down early. Brenda was grumpy, understandably so, and by 9 p.m. guests started leaving. But Brenda didn't want to be alone that night, and she asked everyone, one by one, if they would be willing to stay. When I asked Christy about this in our interview, she said that none of the siblings liked being alone, and they preferred to have someone else in the house with them. She believes this is likely because they grew up in a big family and there was always someone around. However, on this night, everyone declined. Although I would like to point out that Brenda's sister Kay did invite her to her house later, saying that she could stay over there.
She was asking all of us to stay or one of us to stay. She was just in such a bad mood that, she got a little grouchy with me too. And I was like, no, I'm just going home. Not like really mad at her. It's just kind of like, nah, I ain't staying, you know what I'm saying? Just like a sibling thing. It wasn't like, oh, I hate you for the rest of my life or anything like that. It was just like, just going to give her some time. But nobody stayed. And I've had people say, well, shouldn't y'all have stayed with her? I don't think no family member would leave their loved ones if they ever thought something bad was going to happen to them, Never. I'd have been standing there with a pitchfork and any other weapon I could pick up if I thought so. I don't care how mad she was or what kind of mood she'd been in if I believed. And that goes for my whole family. If we believe that someone was actually going to do something to her, I've regretted it for almost 32 years now.
Reportedly, Raymond, his mother, and her children were the last ones to leave the party. Brenda begged Raymond to leave the kids with her, but he refused and took them back to his mother's house with him.
A couple hours later, around 11 p.m., Raymond showed up to Brenda's sister's house, her sister Kat. Kat reports that Raymond was pale and shaky, and he said he was looking for Brenda because he couldn't find her and she wasn't at her house. The following morning, Brenda's mom called and Brenda didn't answer. Worried, she went over to the house. Brenda's car was out front, but there was no answer at the door and no sign of movement in the locked house. Brenda's mom called everyone she could think of, but no one had seen or heard from Brenda. This was completely out of character for Brenda. Her mom went to the police to report her missing, but she was told to wait 48 hours before they would take a report. And after the 48 hours were up, they would only accept a report from her husband, despite the fact that they were estranged and barreling towards a divorce. In what must have been the longest 48 hours of her life, Brenda's mother continued to call around looking for her daughter. She periodically went back to her house to see if she had shown up, but every time she arrived at an empty house. After the 48-hour period that the police imposed, Raymond went into the station to make the missing persons report. According to Raymond's statement, he went to Brenda's house around 2:30 p.m. on July 27th, the day after the birthday celebration, and Brenda wasn't there. Raymond added that he thought Brenda had run off with another man. But there are a couple things wrong with this statement. The first is that Raymond had been at Brenda's sister Kat's house at 11 p.m. on the 26th and told her that Brenda wasn't home. That's a full 15 and a half hours before he told the police he was at the house. The other issue is thinking that Brenda had run off with another man. She was actively trying to get legal custody of her kids, who were her whole life. So why would she run off without them? And lastly, she hadn't mentioned a new man to anyone. There was a friend that had a thing for her, and put a pin in that because he will come up again soon. But Christy says that Brenda wasn't seeing anyone at the time of her disappearance. Following the missing persons report finally being taken, police went to Brenda's house and found it locked. A couple of Brenda's sisters and, surprisingly, Tammy went to the house to meet the police. And Tammy said she knew of a way into the house via a second-story window that she knew didn't lock.
The doors were locked and they couldn't get in. So Tammy shows up with either ways one or two of my sisters. There's conflicting ideals about that. But she knows that she can climb up to the second story of Brenda's house and there's a window that doesn't lock. She goes in that way and she goes and she unlocks the door for the police.
Police searched the house and found Brenda's bedroom in disarray. The clothes Brenda wore to her son's party were in the bathroom by the door, suggesting that she got changed after everyone left the party. All of her bras and underwear were gone from her drawers, and Christy wonders if someone tried to make it look like Brenda had packed her bags in a hurry. As well as her undergarments being missing, Raymond said her rings were also gone. And this is where things get even weirder. Because in a bathroom that had been undergoing a remodel inside a toy box was Brenda's purse with her ID, money, and car keys inside. Christy believes that Brenda was hiding these things from Raymond so that he couldn't take her money or license, which would hinder her ability to keep her appointment with the custody lawyer. Now, as most of us who consume true crime content know, when a person goes missing, the first suspect is always the spouse or ex, and this was no exception. Raymond was questioned, and he told the police that he and Brenda were best friends, and she would always trust him with personal information. He said that she would still talk to him even though they were separated, and he thought it was strange that she would just up and leave without saying anything to him. After the statement, Raymond was let go. Police appeared to believe Raymond's theory that Brenda had left on her own accord with another man, and there was little to no movement in the case in the days, weeks, and months following Brenda's disappearance. Raymond then moved back into the house he had once shared with Brenda, and within a couple of days, Tammy moved in too, and they were eventually married.
Yes. Proof that Tammy, they were having an affair. Yes. She even goes into a police station a week later and tells them she's Raymond's girlfriend. So, I mean, and then, not even like a week, 5 days later, she moved into Brenda's house and started playing mommy and wife to Raymond and Brenda's kids. And I mean, even Brenda's grandkids call her mama. And I'm like, no, baby, that's your cousin. That's not your mama. You know?
Now, remember when I mentioned a man that possibly had a crush on Brenda prior to her disappearance? Well, his name was Mark Cook, and he was reported missing 5 months after Brenda was. Christy doesn't believe the pair were dating. Sure, they knew each other from high school, and they used to bump into each other at a local nightclub where they liked to dance. They would also sometimes see each other at Burger King. Mark worked there, and Brenda loved to treat herself. Christy said that she saw some flirting between the two, but believes it was innocent and that it's all that it was. Christy believes there could be a connection between Mark's disappearance and Brenda's. On July 13th, 1993, Mark was at Pedro's, the club where he used to dance with Brenda. Christy told the Princeton Times that she heard Mark went to Pedro's and supposedly asked someone about Brenda and got beat up and thrown out. It was 20-some degrees that night, and he was last seen around 3 a.m., leaving the club and walking towards U.S. Route 52. There has been no sign of him since. A family friend reported his disappearance to the police. He seemingly vanished into thin air, much like Brenda. Mark is 5'8" with green eyes, brown hair, and fair skin. He was last seen wearing bleach blue jeans, a black t-shirt, black tennis shoes, and a blue denim jacket with writing on the back. He was born in 1969, so if he was alive today, he would be 55 years old.
Despite there being no evidence to back it up, rumors started swirling that Brenda and Mark's disappearances were connected, and that the police received a tip that they had run away together. This rumor has persisted to this day.
The Mercer County Sheriff's Department believes that Mark and Brenda's disappearances are connected, and that foul play was involved in both of them. The family members of the pair are divided about their beliefs surrounding the connection. Both Brenda and Mark's moms think there is a link, whereas one of Brenda's other sisters told Cold Justice, anybody trying to connect those two is just getting thrown off really bad. The only lead in Mark's case was a 2003 tip that said that his body, along with Brenda's, could be found in a pond off Route 52 near where he went missing. The pool was searched by a diver and underwater recording equipment was used, but nothing was found.
And something else I want to address, because it's just really been a thorn in my side, is West Virginia State Police has her data missing wrong. And they have that Brenda and Mark were boyfriend and girlfriend on their website. So usually I find a lot of people will be trying to be helpful, and they'll do posts about Brenda and Mark's cases, or they'll just do one about Brenda, or they'll do something about Mark. And they go find the West Virginia State Police's website with their information on it, and it's wrong. And I've called and talked to multiple people, and nobody knows how to change it. They told me to contact her detective. I did. He said he'd look into it, and it's still the same thing. Brenda didn't disappear in October 1991. She disappeared in July 1992, and her and Mark was not dating. So, and I have to go back and correct. And then I've had people actually argue with me and tell me that I'm wrong, that my sister disappeared in 1991, not 1992.
The investigation into Brenda's disappearance went nowhere, and the case grew colder and colder. After her disappearance, Brenda's children were raised by Raymond and Tammy. Christy told us that Brenda's children were not allowed to have pictures of their mom visible, and they weren't allowed to talk about their mom either. They were even scolded for saying her name.
She also said that Tammy would not let her keep pictures up of Brenda in her bedroom. She would go in there and she would slam them down wherever she had them.
Brenda's children still had contact with their maternal side of the family, but Christy said things were complicated for obvious reasons.
When me and Raymond would see each other out, we'd hug and stuff like that, because I was still confused. Like, did you actually kill her? What actually went on? I wanted to see the kids. He would actually bring the kids over and let me see them whenever I would come into West Virginia, because I'd moved to Tennessee by then. But it was just really, it was so complex, and it still is. It's really hard to have all of these mixed emotions and feelings about him. And, you know, did you actually do it? Or did your dad do it? You know, are you even going to say, I'm sorry? but he's never said a bad word to me. Ever. Not once.
Brenda's daughter would occasionally say things about the night her mother went missing.
Now, Brenda's daughter said that night, and then other people have said it too within the family, that Raymond and his dad were on and off the mountain all night long.
Brenda's daughter, as she got older, started to write notes for her mom's family. In the notes were her childhood memories, including details about what she remembered from the night her mother was last seen.
Brenda's daughter, she wrote tons of notes for us. Because she asked me to please not tell nobody what she was doing because everybody would get mad at her. So she wrote, and the two of the parts that stick out the most was saying that she's seen her daddy dragging her mommy behind her grandma's house the night Brenda disappeared. She said she went and told her grandma, and her grandma told her that it was a bad dream to go back to sleep. And she said she knows she wasn't asleep.
During my interview with Christy, she recounted a later event told to her by Brenda's daughter in which Tammy said to Raymond, "Why don't you tell them what really happened to their mommy?" Raymond retaliated by hitting Tammy with a weapon. Just as there were rumors about Brenda running off with Mark, there were other rumors. These rumors said that Raymond and his father were seen being at the sawmill located down the road from their property and owned by the family on the night that Brenda was last seen. Despite these rumors and the memories of Brenda's daughter, police were unable to get search warrants for Raymond's parents' house, property, or the sawmill. The sawmill is reported to have been burned down. However, due to its secluded location and being on private property, Christy hasn't been able to confirm this.
6 years after Brenda was last seen, her house burned down. Thankfully, no one was hurt in the blaze, which was ultimately ruled an accident.
Tammy and Raymond eventually divorced. Tammy alleges that Raymond had been physically abusive towards her during their marriage. And she later said that although she initially believed that Brenda left on her own accord, she now has doubts. But she feared for her own safety, so didn't ask any further questions. Both of Brenda's parents passed away within 6 years of her disappearance, with Christy saying that the grief is what killed her mother. She literally grieved herself to death. Tragically, Brenda's daughter also passed away in 2020. She was just 5 years old when she lost her mother, and she continued to be impacted by the tragic and sudden loss of her for her entire life. Christy recounted how her niece would call her and her other aunts crying.
Brenda's kids were told that, she left them for a man, that she didn't want them anymore. Her daughter suffered with that her entire life. She lived another secret life where she was trying to find her mother. She was writing notes down of things that she had witnessed the whole time for me to take into law enforcement. She gave her DNA to CODIS along with me in case remains were found.
Christy has tried to maintain a positive relationship with her nephew, but admits the circumstances have made it hard.
Well, the kids thought that nobody cared about them for so long, and that breaks my heart. But I've loved them, and I still love them. I love her son. We don't really talk anymore. He's on one side, I'm on the other. But, we did vow to protect each other, and, the love's always going to be there. It's just where we're at right now.
After all these years, all this time, Christy just wants answers. She wants to lay her sister to rest and get some closure.
That divide that you're talking about with Raymond and the son on one side and you on the other seeking justice for Brenda, has it split the family, or is everyone mostly on the side that you're on seeking justice?
Well, all of Brenda's family is naturally on our side. And Brenda's son, I understand how he feels the way he does. Raymond wasn't my biological father, but, he was a really good dad to us. And when you're growing up thinking, oh, your mom just left and your dad's just there. He's still nice to me. No matter how much I've drug him out and he's never said a bad word to me. And I expected something by now, but he just won't. I don't hate the man. I don't hate him. I wish he would come clean and do the right thing. Just give me Brenda back. It's been long enough. 32 years. I would take her body over anything.
Brenda's family continues to do all they can to get answers. In 2006, An age-progressed photo with Brenda was created just in case she was still alive somewhere. Then in 2016, Christy submitted her DNA in the hopes that it would match a Jane Doe and she would finally know what happened to her sister. Then in 2022, Christy petitioned the Mercer County Commission to issue a death certificate for Brenda, and her petition was granted.
I did not want to declare her dead. And I mean, that was, like I said, not only was it hard for not only me, but my family and then even the county clerk. We were having a hard time because Brenda was probably the first one ever been declared dead in Mercer County.
The Aware Foundation funded a billboard about Brenda's disappearance in 2023. It was placed off of Cole Heritage Road in Bluefield, a location that allows tens of thousands of people to see it each and every week.
People ask me why I'm so consumed with Brenda. I'm like, that is probably one of the most ignorant questions I've ever been asked in my life. Why am I consumed? Like, how can you not be consumed?
When Brenda went missing, she was 22 years old. Today, she would be 54. However, Christy believes that Brenda was murdered and will not be found alive. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'2" and 110 pounds with black, curly, shoulder-length hair and dark blue eyes. Brenda is of Caucasian descent.
Anyone with information about the whereabouts of Brenda Lambert or what happened the night she disappeared should contact the Mercer County Sheriff at 304-487-8364.
Christy would love support on social media.
You can find information about Brenda on Facebook at Missing Brenda Gail Lambert. My Instagram is at FindBrenda92. I think the most important thing is to share information because, you know, when you share the flyers and you share the stories, that tells you, everything you pretty much need to know about Brenda's or any other person's cases. My goal is to bring Brenda home and bury her with her parents, just to bring a young mommy home who had her life, just taken from her over greed. And something else I like to tell, viewers too, is just, your family and friends' business is your business. Get involved with your family. Domestic violence is a killer. And you don't want to end up like us. But it never occurred to me that this was going to happen to us. We were big fans of Unsolved Mysteries. We'd all sit and watch it together. But, I have a sister that is one. I just want everybody to realize it can happen to anybody.
Make sure to follow us on all of our socials at The Murder Diaries Pod and subscribe today to listen ad-free and check out our journal entry episodes. Until then,
Stay safe.
bye.
The search for truth never ends. Introducing June's Journey, a hidden object mobile game with a captivating story. Connect with friends, explore the roaring 20s, and enjoy thrilling activities and challenges while supporting environmental causes. After 7 years, the adventure continues with our immersive travels feature. Explore distant cultures and engage in exciting experiences. There's always something new to discover. Are you ready? Download June's Journey now on Android or iOS.